The Nebraska Huskers can win the Big Ten West.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Pearson from 92.7 The Ticket in Lincoln, Nebraska, and welcome to Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast for the Huskers and part of the Locked On Sports Network. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first listen and watch each day. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Go Big Red. Brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with the most props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Nebraska heads into this road trip 2-3 with an opportunity to change its fortune. And offensive coordinator Mark Whipple spent today's press conference talking about Nebraska can win the Big Ten West, and they need to start acting as though they can win the Big Ten West. That's pretty good news and a strong power statement. He said he wasn't satisfied with the way the offense played, even though they managed to find a way to finish with a 35-21 win over Indiana. He was not satisfied. Wasn't satisfied in the reads, wasn't satisfied in the energy, wasn't satisfied in the way they finished the second half. Missed opportunities, some wide open opportunities with Casey Thompson and Trey Palmer. He spoke specifically about those. You can't miss those opportunities in the Big Ten Conference. But a big part of that is now a statement that the expectations are changed because they now know what they are capable of. A big part of Saturday's performance was changing the level of expectation and understanding the knowledge that this team can win the Big Ten West. They're in a logjam. Everybody's 1-1 except for Wisconsin. And now Mark Whipple wants this offense to change gears, speed it up a little bit, be more effective in what they do. But they've got lots to work from. Running back Anthony Grant ranks number 6 in the country in rushing yards per game, 3rd in the Big Ten. And that statement in itself for the last year's Junior College Player of the Year, yeah, expectations, renewed expectations, and higher expectations for what's there. We did get to see Jacques Yant. We did get to see Gabe Ervin. We got to see Brody Belt. We got to see Omar Manning. The expectation is changing, and the coaching staff is barking it on a loud and consistent basis. Mark Whipple is known in the Big Ten Conference. Defensive coordinators know him. They know his lower level work. They know his NFL work. They know his Coach of the Year award-winning resume. They know his ability to produce quarterbacks at a high efficiency and a high production level. There is zero expectation below where they currently are. They understand that Whipple can run the ball. Whipple can throw the ball around. Whipple can do both. The question becomes, on a Friday at Piscataway, New Jersey, on a Friday night where the weather should be great for football, there may be a cold front coming in. First time for players to have to deal with that in the course of the season. What happens on a Friday night in Piscataway, New Jersey matters. It matters. How about that, Husker fans, that you got the opportunity to be in a meaningful game on Friday night in national TV? You're going to be where everybody's eyes land. And the curiosity from around the rest of the Big Ten Conference is what's happening in Lincoln. What's going on with interim head coach Mickey Joseph? What's going on with Mark Whipple? What's going on with Bill Busch? What's going on with the special teams? What's going on with this special group of players? Casey Thompson has put up wonderful numbers. Trey Palmer's numbers are similar to that. He's 10th in the nation, 3rd in the Big Ten with 36 catches, 480 yards, 2 touchdowns. Game breaker, explosive, field-changing talent at the receiver position. They're getting work from the depth. And not to speak small of the large, but Travis Vokalek is back. Chancellor Brewington has changed his elevation in the program. You have two functioning, threatening tight ends. Vokalek's ability to get behind linebackers and settle firmly in front of safeties is a problem for Big Ten defenses, especially those that like to attack. And I will tell you that this Husker offense is facing a talented, physical, attacking defense in Rutgers. This is a top 20 defense in the country. Even after the beatdown that they took against Ohio State, that's Ohio State. Everybody else struggled. And even with the massive numbers that were put up by Ohio State, Rutgers still ranks in the top 20 defensively. Tackles for loss, they attack the ball, they attack in space, they do a real good job. They've got one stud defensive back, and then some guys that, if you're Nebraska, you kind of rub your hands together because you get an opportunity to attack these folks. They have tackling issues. They gave up 5 rushing touchdowns on Saturday against Ohio State, and they were all bruising missile type runs. It was interesting to watch this defense that, for the size that they possess and the speed that they possess, they had a problem fitting. Their run fits were not good on Saturday, and I would imagine that this week a lot of the attention will be paid to being in the right place at the right time and then being able to make plays. Ohio State attacked the seams in the passing game. That's what happens when linebackers have to step up and try to bang out with a running back that's got it going. But if you're Nebraska, you look firmly again at the place that question marks rest: the offensive line. Who will play for the Huskers up front? We don't know. We haven't heard back from the Big Ten Conference about, what went on with Corcoran. We don't know what happens on the right side with Ben Hart and Hunter Anthony, and we don't know what happens with Brant Banks. We're pretty set with Hickson and Piper, and then we'll see what else happens. Pay attention to the number of tight ends on the field Friday night. I would expect that there will be some 3 tight end sets and even some jumbos with 6 offensive linemen out there, especially in short yardage. The decision of Mark Whipple to just line up and be big and be strong, it was important to see. 52 rushes Saturday night by the Huskers. Pay attention to that number this Friday night. It's going to be important. BetOnline, with the most props, odds, lines, and odds, has Nebraska as a 3.5-point favorite on the road on Friday night. And it's a blackout night in Piscataway. The Scarlet Knights will don the field in all black. What are the odds on that? It'll be an interesting night for sure. I'm not telling anybody how to bet. I'm just telling you to go look. On the other side of the ball for the Huskers, look, Bill Busch got to speak today with his chest out, a smile on his face. He was emotionally affected by Saturday's finish. There is a video here in Lincoln that was passed around of Bill Busch and his family being met on the field post-game, and he was asked about it at today's press conference, and his reaction was one of deep emotion. He had to pause and regain his composure. A powerful thing happened Saturday night at Memorial Stadium, and especially for Bill Busch and family, because being put in that position for the first game with a defense that struggled, he changed the conversation about this Nebraska defense. Look, it was not a pretty couple of weeks. But what happened first quarter? They handled their business. They got in their zones. They made tackles in open space. The rotation of players and personnel, we hadn't seen that all year long. Depth at every position being put in and put out, even the leadership at linebacker. Heinrich and Reimers both took plays off. where they were replaced by younger players who were put in to do specifically what those young players could do in those situations. And aside from the late second quarter 2-drive segment of the ball game, the Nebraska defense was dominant. And that's not a word that we used about this Nebraska defense. But the rotation of players, a different level of player, again, new players in the secondary, different responsibilities for the people in the secondary. And then getting some pressure from your leadership, getting high-level play from your leadership. Captains Garrett Nelson and Luke Reimer showed up. Reimer's interception was as big a play as we can speak about, turning what could have been a conversion play into a turnover and first down. Exceptional play. And then Garrett Nelson with 2 sacks and 4 pressures. That's what they've been asking for from these players. It showed up. A couple of things about this Rutgers offense. And Nebraska fans want to lean heavily on Noah Vedral because he's a former Husker. But Noah Vedral hasn't been healthy. He has not been 100%. He's still not 100%. So they made decisions, and they went with Evan Simon, who is just as athletic, not as experienced, maybe a little tougher, willing to take contact. They've got a couple of running quarterbacks that they will use. But Simon is their third quarterback. You will see quarterbacks 3 and 4. You may see Noah Vedral for some larger portion of the game if he's healed and gets better clearance. But that's not a thing that's coming out of Piscataway quite yet. Good running offense, not a great running offense. They have receivers, 2 receivers in play that you have a 20-catch receiver and a 16-catch receiver. The tight end is probably the second biggest threat offensively in the pass game. They use the screen. They want to be physical up front. The 6 linemen that get the bulk of the work, oh my goodness gracious. These are some angry bull snort offensive line. They like getting physical. They like getting hands-on, and it will be quite the battle up front. Once again, offensively and defensively, this game will be decided up front. And Nebraska's defensive line knows the responsibility. The linebackers have to know that these Rutgers offensive linemen want to get to the second level and get bodies on. You don't want turnovers to play a part of the game, but on a Friday night in a blackout where emotions run high, turnovers play a part in the game. The Rutgers offense isn't trying to put the ball on the field, on the turf. They are trying to be conservative and make smart plays with the ball. But they will play some 11-on-11 football. It's not that 10-on-11 with a quarterback that's fragile, kind of a glass doll. Nope. They put their quarterbacks in play, and they're going to make Nebraska defend 11-on-11, and it'll be physical. Quarterback will run the ball quite a few times on Friday night. So discipline is a thing that will play into this thing. We will have to pay attention to linebackers being in play. We'll have to pay attention to safeties, filling the box and closing gaps. But up the middle is where my concerns are. What kind of play are the interior linemen for Nebraska on defense? What kind of night are they going to have? When this is just a brawl in a telephone booth. This is where my coach used to say, this is just us getting in the utility closet and we'll work it out. There won't be a lot of finesse when it comes to Rutgers offense. But they're veteran, they're established, and they're physical, which is where, Nebraska fans say they want to live, but we're going to find that out on Friday night. A couple of things in play as well. The Rutgers special teams is pretty good. And when you can look at a team's special teams and look at its specialists and identify them. Aaron Cruikshank, the last time he saw Nebraska, he took a kickoff 98 yards for a touchdown. So, he's drooled a little bit. He's also their leading receiver. He likes the matchup. Nobody that will be on the field Friday night covered him the last time they played. It's a thing. They understand it. Right? Their punter, top 5 in the country in net yardage at just over 42 plus. They make a point to shut down punt returns. And Nebraska had a good week. But this may be one where you circle the place kicker for Nebraska and say that we may need some special performance there. That's a good Rutgers special teams group. They spent a lot of time with it. Coach was talking earlier this morning about the emphasis that now Trey Palmer has changed the way Nebraska approaches punt returns and kick returns. So they put more emphasis on it. And it's not just, hey, kick it out of bounds and expect Nebraska to, fair catch it and take a knee. Trey Palmer actually put his hand down, made a catch, and tried to get some positive yards this week. Look, these are two teams that match up. Nebraska's numbers are better offensively across the board. Rutgers' numbers are better defensively across the board. If you took away the Ohio State game, Rutgers' numbers would be top 10. That's good, how good they are. Nebraska and Rutgers will be meeting for the 6th time overall, and 5th time in Big Ten. The 5th time as Big Ten conference opponents. Of course, the Huskers have won all 5, including victories 2015 and 2020. Most recent meeting was a Friday night brawl in 2020. Rutgers had Nebraska on the ropes. Couldn't finish. Adrian Martinez and that Husker team pulled out a win. Scarlet Knights plan on coming and running the ball. That's a key. And as we go through the things that will be important in this space, let's start at the top. Nebraska is going to have to run the ball against a stout Rutgers run defense. They're just going to have to find a way. They're going to have to settle firmly in. Look, we've got to be productive on the ground. We don't know the physical condition of Casey Thompson. We don't know that we want him out there taking hits. So the bulk of this could land firmly on Anthony Grant. We'll see Gabe Urban a few times. And then we will require this offensive line to be successful. A thing to circle. Penalties. Nebraska got flagged 12 times for over 100 yards on Saturday night, and the numbers are close to that on Friday night. On the road, it's going to be a problem. Being physical does not mean being over-aggressive. They've got to be smart about how they use their aggression. They got to be smart about how they use their presence. But this is a game of big guys. Friday night is a game of big guys. Whatever group handles it best will do well. How will the Huskers handle being on the road on a Friday night in a short week? How will either team show up physically on Friday night on a short week where both teams played physical games Saturday night? The injuries have one less day to heal. Casey Thompson has a less day to heal. Trey Palmer has one less day to heal. There are a lot of beat-up Huskers in there, a lot of beat-up Scarlet Knights. They have 6 potential starters who have an injury of some sort and may be a day-to-day or even a game-time decision. These two teams it's a big day, but they're beat up going into this thing. Who shows up matters. And then the coaches, who are familiar. Yeah, there's some advantage to Nebraska only having one game with this coaching group, but the individual coaches know each other. They're all veteran. They all have some knowledge and some tape on the other. Penalties, turnovers, and then, quite frankly, being able to finish drives rather than accept field goals. Nebraska needs to get into the end zone on Friday night, early and often. But as Mark Whipple said, Nebraska can win the Big Ten West. We'll find out Friday night. whether they can win the Big Ten West or not. Those 3 words in closing. Go Big Red.